This episode is about a concept called the gap and the gain by Ben Hardy. Again, the gap and the gain. The idea is that if you live in the gap, you will always be suffering and endlessly not happy. So that's the gap from where you are to where you want to be, versus if you live in the gain, how far you've come. If you're constantly looking for your lessons learned and how far you've come, you have a much higher percentage chance of being happy. This is some stories and examples around that, and enjoy this episode. You know, when someone is selling from stage and at the end, the audience gets up and rushes to the back of the room to buy? That's a table rush. My name is Mischa Z, and the Table Rush Talk Show is all about bringing you the tools, strategies, and tactics that you can use to grow your audience and inspire them to buy. So I was reintroduced to the concept called The Gap and the Gain by Ben Hardy, and there's another author that he does that with, but it's a great concept. And I was first introduced to it by a coach of mine, Vince Green, and I was just reintroduced to it by Russell Brunson at his Mastermind in Paradise. Russell Brunson brought in Ben Hardy, who wrote the book The Gap and the Gain, and he went deep a little bit with us. So again, I'll just recap the idea. So the gap is, when you're living in the gap, you're constantly looking at your future, at that goal you have in the future, or that future you that you're striving to be, and that is elusive and always moving forward. So you'll never be happy because you're achieving a moving target. And if you do happen to capture it, even for a moment, it is fleeting. Versus if you're living in the gain, you're constantly measuring yourself from where you've come from. And he goes really deep on it. You can get the book. It's called The Gap and the Gain. There's also like a 5-series podcast on The Gap and the Gain by Ben Hardy. It's very fun to listen to and very inspiring. But if you're living in the gain and you're looking for where you've come from, then you have a much better chance of relishing the happy moments. So we can use a big example of that. I'm in the internet marketing space, trying to grow a business, gathering customer testimonials, and I'm going to call it a testimonial agency. I've got a testimonial agency now. So all things testimonial, grabbing your customer stories to help you sell. And I am surrounded in the 2CCX and the Inner Circle. And what else is there? Russell Brunson's Category Kings. When I'm at these events that Russell throws, there's 2CCX, Category Kings, Inner Circle, Atlas, and all those folks above the 2CCX are generating millions of dollars of revenue, multiple millions of dollars of revenue. Some are getting above hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue. And if I'm constantly comparing myself to that horizon, it can be very frustrating. So at the event I was just at, the Mastermind in Paradise, and I'm surrounded by lots of multi-million-dollar revenue generating business people, and lots of success stories. There can be lots of highs and lows. There can be lots of peak learning moments where, oh my gosh, everything's come together. I'm so excited. But then you can be devastated, or I can be devastated when I have the low stroke moment. Like, I'm failing. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so far behind. And I'm so far away from that elusive horizon. But if I look at it from the gain standpoint, if I look at it from how far I've come over the last 2.5 years, my goodness, I've had massive gains. I'm not generating millions of dollars yet, not even hundreds of thousands of dollars yet. Um, However, I have a marketable business now. I have success stories now of people that I've helped. I've learned a whole new language, this whole new funnel hacking internet marketing language. If I just stop and look at that, that's pretty crazy what I've learned there, how far I've come there. I could give a ton of other examples. Um, and I want to get a little more nuanced with it. So if we start applying this to Ben Hardy's theory is that, hey, if you can start to look for learning in, if you can start to look for what you've learned in every circumstance, then every circumstance is a win and every circumstance is a gain. Um, and I love that concept. And so all this is sloshing through my head, you know, and I go to, I go to, I get to hang out with, I'm going to use the Eileen Wilder story. So I'm hanging out with Eileen Wilder, and this is real time too, right? So this just happened 2 days ago as of this recording. I'm chatting with Eileen Wilder and her business partner. And Eileen Wilder is very successful and has a ton of notoriety in the funnel hacking online marketing space that I'm in. So she's very financially successful. Her and her partner, ton of notoriety. And so this is her business partner's wife. Joe's her business partner. Joe's business partner's wife, who is actually runs the whole back end of the business. So Joe is customer facing. His wife Monica is the back end of it. The integrator is what we'll call her. And so I'm hanging out with Eileen and Monica, and I'm telling them a story, and it's going great. They're really paying attention. And then all of a sudden, I was actually telling them two stories. And the two stories are, I had this recent success. The lady said, "Hey," Stacy said, "Hey, you made me $70,000 with the video work you've done for me, with the interviews that you've done with my customers." And then also my success speaking on a show. So I've been telling those two stories a lot because people ask, "Where are you in your business?" And so I explain it. And it's also a great hook. They're great stories because if people are interested in me getting them their customer stories and their customer testimonials, then they're two great stories. Anyway, I'm just laughing as I'm reliving it. They're good stories anyway. So if you're just even interested in the space, they're two great stories. So I'm telling the two stories to Eileen and Monica. I believe her name's Monica. And I have a total brain fart right in the middle of it. And I forgot why I was telling them the stories, because it wasn't the usual like pitch, the pitch to, "You need me to get your testimonials." It was just, we were just telling stories. And so I had a point of why I was telling them to them, and I totally forgot. And I was like, I can't remember why I was telling you these stories. And they were looking at me raptly or with rapt or apt attention. And their faces they were so disappointed. They were like, "What do you mean?" They didn't say that, but they looked at me like that. And, so I was very disheartened. I was like, man, I blew it. I had Eileen and Monica, these two amazing women with amazing businesses. I had them hooked. And then I just totally let them down. And, so, I was like, all right, that night we got the Gap in the Gain lecture, the Gap in the Gain presentation by Ben Hardy. And so I was like, I want to apply that Gap in the Gain to the emotional bottom I felt when I felt like I'd totally blown it, right? And so I was like, okay, let's do it. What were the lessons learned? What were the lessons learned? What were the wins that came out of that? And I'm also going to relate this to the big things that happen to us. Divorce, right? You go through divorce and people are like, don't worry, there'll be lessons learned. You're like, yeah, well, divorce sucks. Anyway, so on the small issue here, I was like, oh my gosh, I really thought about it and I realized, wow, I had them hooked. Like those two were captivated by my story. At least I think they were. This might be an exaggeration. Eileen and Monica, if you're listening to this, I apologize for saying you were captivated if it just felt like you were captivated. Anyway, at least you were paying attention. How's that? They were paying attention. Okay. I'm paying enough attention to be disappointed when I forgot what I was telling them. Um, but I thought, man, I had them hooked. They were hooked. And I was like, that's awesome, right? Like, that's a great win. I had two people I was hoping to meet one day. I did have an opportunity to meet him, and I had him hooked, at least for a moment. So that was the win. I was on the bus ride home talking with Dawn and Emily Mamone. They're the Mamones who do all the photo work for Funnel Hacking Live for Russell. So any of the beautiful, amazing photos you see from Funnel Hacking Live, the Mamones, Dawn and Emily, are taking them. And they are two of the coolest, smartest, sweetest, most amazing creators, photographers, business people ever. So I'm talking to them, and we were having a great conversation on the bus, and Emily says, "Hey, so I told her we were talking about the gap and the gain. So because they obviously were at this event, photographing it, photographing it. They photograph Russell's events, not only Funnel Hacking Live. And so um, it's late. I'm tired. I just hit record. Sometimes you just have to hit record and go. So where was I here? So I tell Emily, hey, this is how I applied uh, the gap and the gain, Ben Hardy's lesson learned. So I could be happy about my life, where I am, how far I've come in that situation. And she goes, yeah, not only that, not only did you have him hooked, but you got to be human. In that moment, you got to be human. And consciously or subconsciously, that's an endearing quality, right? Someone has shows humanness to us, it can be endearing, even subconsciously. And she said she rattled off about 5 or 6 other things that I can't remember right now. But I was like, oh my goodness, that is amazing. So I am committed to, sorry, another distraction. Ben gave us a homework assignment, a nightly homework assignment. I believe it was write down your 3 wins for the day. I'll do a round 2 on this episode, but perhaps buy his book and you can see what the lessons are to be, or not the lessons, the homework are. Holy mackerel. Hang in there with me, people. So yes, I'm committed to applying this to as many of the low point moments of the day. Like as soon as I can apply lessons learned, the better. And I think what happens is on the big things in our lives where we'll go through something very big in our lives, or where the universe just cracks us on the side of the head. I used to call them a bitch slap. I don't know if that's PC anymore. Divorces. Anytime you hit bottom in life and someone will tell you, hey, don't worry, there'll be lessons learned. And so if we can accelerate that gap, or we can accelerate the lessons learned, closing that gap, how powerful is that? And then if we can, I think sometimes we miss to apply it to the small things in our lives. So there you go. That's what I've got for you. The gap and the gain. Try to live in the gain. Look for how far you've come versus how far you've constantly got to go, because that horizon is always moving.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Table Rush Talk Show. For resources to help you sell your stuff, go to belove.media/resources. That's belove.media/resources. And be sure to subscribe, comment, 5-star, and share. Thank you again for listening.